Hi everyone, Teresa Aker here from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to Jasmine Bootle. How you doing, Jasmine?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for being on the show today. Now, Jasmine has a wonderful story. Success Diaries is about people overcoming adversity, and I'd like to read you her story and why I have her on today. So, just one moment. So, Jasmine Bootle has overcome many adversities in her life, from bullying at an early age to alcoholism. After losing her father, she decided to get sober and help others do the same. Through her podcast, Everyone is Addicted, and her Homeless Resources program, she has turned her life into one she loves. Old friends have commented that the light is back in her eyes. What a nice statement there. Jasmine, let's start at the beginning. How did this all get started? And let's talk about today and where you're going. So let's start back.
For me to talk about where I started. So I grew up in a very small town. Like, I think the population at the time was 3,000 people. So everybody knew everybody. Our our classroom sizes, everybody was always in the same class, you know what I mean? So everybody, like I said, knew everybody's parents, knew everybody. It was just a very hard place to escape from negativity if people felt negative towards you.
Okay.
So my bullying started very young. I'm very small,
Okay.
so people see me as quite an easy target. My mother didn't help much because she didn't want me to get lice, and I had hair that was long enough to sit on. So she would put pure tea tree oil in my hair.
Okay.
So I was the stinky kid because my hair smelled like tea tree oil, right? So I got bullied for that quite a bit. But the bullying didn't really get that bad until high school because children are children, but they're not the same as high school, right? So in high school, I had about a group of 8 girls who were a year older than me constantly pick on me. So they would circle around me and push me from side to side, whoever I hit, and they'd be like, any name you can think of. I don't want to say too much because of your podcast,
I
but
understand.
they would say things to that nature, right? They would push me around a lot. They would also yell those words at me if they seen me anywhere. They'd follow me around town. They would throw garbage at me all the time out of their car, or if they seen me in the hallway, they would hold me down and beat me. And the principal was telling me that I was making this up, but I was covered in blood. And like, how do you make that up? But I guess that's just how he chose to deal with it, I think. This went on for 2 years where they just went hard. Like if somebody was to experience what I experienced, most people would end their lives. It was pretty brutal. But I decided to think of it this way. If you're putting that much effort into me instead of focusing on anything else, then I must be important because you're putting a lot of effort into this, right? So that's how I managed to rise above the negative comments and negative energies that they were throwing at me because I took it as I'm not sitting here thinking about how I can hurt you so badly, but you are thinking that way about me, right? So that was my coping mechanism. But I definitely was terrified to go to the bathroom. I got in trouble for using the teachers' bathrooms all the time because I didn't want them to smash my teeth or do something in a bathroom where there's no cameras. I ended up switching schools and going to a counselor because I was terrified of people. Like I wouldn't speak to anybody at this new school at all because I was just terrified it was going to happen again. So I had to go to a counselor for the last year I was in high school. I don't mean had to, but I did. And it helped me learn more coping mechanisms as to how to let that go and how to still live in a town where people are constantly yelling things at me and be okay. But then So I went through that, and the counseling helped tremendously, but I'm an only child and my parents split up when I was 19. My mother took everything from my dad except for his house. He didn't have a car. And we lived in an upper middle class family. Like I went without nothing. Like I had everything, right? So from going to being like that to being in poverty to the point where I'm looking for change on the ground in college so I can buy a bag of cheesies was quite the shift in life, right? Stayed with my dad because I didn't want to see him like that. So I helped him the best I could. I was a student. I was working in restaurants. I only could help as much as I could, but it still kept him afloat enough to survive. Eventually, this is where I started drinking though, because I didn't really know how to cope with everything going on. I was newly in college. I was still dealing with these people screaming things at me everywhere I went. I was dealing with the fact that I really seen an ugly side of my mother, and I also had a broken father who I didn't really know how to help but besides be there for him, right? So I started to drink. My dad also started to drink because he also was not doing well because he wasn't anticipating this happening either. It was negative, random act. Like it wasn't like you knew it was coming kind of thing. She just thought she's a very materialistic person. She had taken out lots of loans in my dad's name. Once my dad's money well ran dry, she tried to take what she could and run off of that, right? So that's what happened there. But to see that and be able to understand it at the age that I was difficult. Like I said, I turned to alcohol for social anxiety reasons and also to cope with the fact of the shift in life. Eventually, my father did manage to get a car. It was a Chrysler Fifth Ave. If anybody knows what that is, it is one of those older cars made of real metal with a huge front end.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this for a reason. I drove it into an 18 wheeler going 90 kilometers an hour. It
Goodness.
was turning left and I was going straight right into it. But because of the front end of this car, I was unhurt.
Yes.
So I got very lucky. I feel like that's a little bit of a divine intervention in itself because he could have had a regular car and I would have died. Whatever you want to call it, I feel like that is one of the times I've had divine intervention happen for me. But then after that, my father, I didn't really learn our lessons. He was quite an enabler. I'd go to court. After court, he'd still buy me a 2 for beer, and we would drink it together and still have our little pity party and stuff like that. He eventually had congestive heart failure, where they put a pacemaker and a defibrillator in, and he quit drinking and smoking and all that stuff. And then really disliked it when I drank. So my drinking curved a little bit, but then I started dating somebody who had went to the war in Afghanistan, and he had severe PTSD because he was in the artillery and he shot a howitzer that killed 120 people. Some of them were civilians. It really affected him. So he was extremely verbally abusive to me, as he would talk to me as if I was like a private he was trading. So he'd get in my face like this and start screaming at me that I'm nothing but S word and a W word and a drunk and I'll never be anything else, and pushing me with his face and all of that kind of stuff. Very emotionally abusive. In our bedroom relationship, I felt like every time that we did the bedroom stuff, it was it wasn't consensual on my part. It didn't feel right. I don't want to use certain words, so I'm going to just say it felt like what any woman would understand what I'm saying. It felt wrong. It didn't feel consensual. It was just not good. So eventually, even though we were engaged, I left him because I realized anybody who loves me would never say any of these things to me. I need to get out of this before I have children, right?
Sure.
So I left him and then connected with somebody I had a crush on in high school and ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. And so my daughter came. My dad, all he ever wanted was a grandchild. He kept telling me, just go find a man and I will help you raise the kid and we can forget all about him. He didn't know what was going to happen to him next. So he ended up, after my daughter was born, finding out that he had cancer and that it was a prostate cancer, he wasn't getting prostate exams. So it was the size of a grapefruit, the tumor, and it had metastasized everywhere. So
Oh,
in his bones, in it just did absolutely everything. So he was in massive pain. But he was a toughie and he refused to take painkillers, just refused. But he also refused to stop working. And he did heating and cooling, and he ended up getting septic shock for working on an air conditioner. And he was in a coma for 3 months because they couldn't figure out where this fungal bacteria was coming from until somebody from work came to visit him and said, "Oh, this is what we do with air conditioners." And everybody told me to pull the plug. Everybody. But his room faced the chapel from the church in the hospital. And I would kneel and I would pray Psalms 23 over and over and over. Like I just, yeah, way too many times, I think, for anybody to need to hear it. But anyhow, they figured it out because of this person from work, and he came out of the coma. He had to learn how to walk again. He had a trach because he was in there for 3 months, so he had to heal from that. And then he came home. So then I had this little routine where I loved it. I would get up in the morning, make my dad breakfast, make my daughter breakfast. They were called the Breakfast Club, and they would watch a breakfast show called Breakfast Television.
I know what that
It
is.
was it was a nice time for me for the last bit of time that I had with him. And even like that Halloween, I have pictures of him giving my daughter the candy, and he was very happy despite the pain he was in. He fought through it just to be around her because he wanted that so badly. But inevitably, what ended up happening was he fell off the toilet and he hit his head, and it made the cancer go into his brain, and it was very rare. The doctor said it became viral and attacked his brain, and he passed 2 days later.
I'm sorry for your loss, dear.
There's a lot that goes around with this because if he wouldn't have came out of the coma, my parents weren't divorced. My mom would have got everything, and I would have been on the streets because she's not nice. But he did redo his will, but his pension paperwork hadn't come in until 3 days before he passed. And my aunt dislikes me as well and had him sign his pension away to no one, which is $120,000. So I inherited this old broken down house. I needed that money to fix it up so that I could stay in my childhood home, which my dad had said to his lawyer he wanted because he's always told me he wanted that to be our place. That's our Bootle home. But life is what life is, right? So I had to sell it and move on from that. And I moved to a different town and stuff like that. And then I met somebody else. My daughter's father, or I should say, had a massive drug addiction and was using needles and stuff in my house while I was in the hospital with my dad, and I didn't know about. Once I found out about it, he obviously and I split. My daughter once found a needle that was really traumatizing also. But anyways, he was out of my life from that point on, and I met somebody else, and we have a son together, and we are still together. And he's taken on my daughter,
Yeah.
and she calls him daddy, and yeah, things are good in that regard. So, like, I did have a lot, like, even when I was leaving my house, which was such an important place to me, my mom screaming at me, telling me I'm leaving things behind. Like, it was just all of that stuff was where my trauma lies and or lied, right? I ended up because my spouse has a knee issue. He has a prescription for Percocet. So he gave me one when I had cramps one day. And that was a 2-year addiction after that until I walked through the doors of a clinic. And the doctors, addiction doctors there are incredible. They saved my life. They put me on the path to where I want to be. But like I said, miracles, it was a miracle my dad came back from the coma to have things fixed. There's also the miracle that I went to the wrong place when I was trying to go to this methadone clinic, but somehow I seen my spouse standing in the rain down the street and I found the place. I got sober and life hasn't been easy. I don't know, like I got in a car accident, but I have a mental health assessment, so I have certain mental health issues, right? I have generalized anxiety, complex PTSD, agoraphobia, and aphasia. And aphasia is skin picking, so I pick at my
Oh,
skin.
okay.
So because the police seen that I had picked at my skin, even though I literally just dinged a car in the rain, they thought I was high on fentanyl because that's what this area is known for. And then they told me that I killed somebody, which I didn't kill anybody, and they wouldn't let me call anybody. And they wanted me to go to jail for almost 2 years for this, when all I did was accidentally rear end somebody. I obviously got cleared of all of this because I didn't have any drugs in my system.
Yeah.
So but that was a very traumatic experience.
Wow.
But that's what born was the birth of me starting to focus on bettering myself, finding solution based things because I couldn't sit there every day looking at my children thinking that I'm going to have to leave them and go to prison. Like it's terrifying. I'm not like I'm from a little farming town. Like it was terrifying, right?
Yeah.
So I started a holistic healing business, which
Oh, wow.
I have stepped back from at this point because I am going to school full time and I can't really handle the like volume of clients and stuff with my schoolwork. And
Sure.
obviously my schoolwork to me comes first. Yeah, but it served its purpose. It helped me get my mind off of the negative and it helped me help or it taught me that helping other people is what is my true purpose in life, right? So it helped me with a lot of things in that regard. Then my daughter's father over Christmas time was in the ICU because of pneumonia, and
Oh,
we thought he wasn't going to make it. And he left without them saying he should, but he's still here. He's not passed away, just so everybody knows. But he's still homeless and he's still using intravenously.
oh no.
But it bore it like it was the birthplace of the podcast because I thought about it. Everybody's addicted is in the sense of he has a daughter, he has me, he has his mom, he has his brother, he has his nieces and nephews, and we are all affected by his addiction. And that's what I mean by everybody's addicted, not just the addict.
It's
So I
true.
like to try to give family members a voice because I feel like they suffer silently more than anything. But for me to be able, I like to bring on also medical professionals and people that have found recovery so that they can provide resources to those who are struggling, and also so that people can feel like they're not alone in this kind of a journey. And I find that the people I meet, they uplift me. I really enjoy doing it alongside being a student and a mother.
Yeah.
I've found true happiness. Like I said, like my friend told me that the light has literally come back in my eyes. And like he's known me since I was 5. So he knows everything. And it's because I found what makes me happy. And I think that with anybody, that is a success in itself. If you can find what makes you happy, which is really hard to do. I searched through everything. I took psychology. I've done so much in school. I tried everything to try to find happiness. But I finally found it. With my family, with doing this podcast, and with going to school. I have been able to make the triangle of happiness. So I'm not a billionaire, if you want to say successful wise, but I'm successful in the way of being able to overcome quite a few obstacles and be as normal as possible. That's what my best friend likes to say about me. I have never met a person who's been through so much and is as normal as you. And so that's why I use that. But I just, like I said, I take accountability for my actions and I keep my side of the street clean and I try my best to be the best person I can. And I don't know, that's success to me.
Jasmine, I commend you for everything that you've gone through. And now you're trying to help other people. And let's talk about your podcast because I know you're trying to bring your message forward. You're trying to help people. I want to just circle back to you, as you said, when someone is going through these things, although you had help, you still have to go through it yourself. You have to walk those coals by yourself. Although you do have help from counselors, which I commend you for getting, and I'm glad that you got some great counselors. But you also, as you mentioned, and you touched base lightly on that, the rest of the family, people who are around you, absolutely are affected by that. And I think that's also quite good of you to recognize those people that also are affected. And that includes you because you have some relationships where the person is involved in addiction as well. And you've had to face your own part of that. And then you have your children, which is wonderful. You have two beautiful children, as I understand, and you're a wonderful mother, and you're teaching them that no matter what, you have to stay strong and you have to take responsibility and move forward and always look at hope and optimism. And now you're giving back to the community. So well done, Jasmine. After your entire story, I really, truly commend you for doing that.
Well, I appreciate it so much. There's a lot I left out because of podcast reasons.
That's okay, but you did a great job. And
But
let's
um
tell us
I
what your podcast is again. The name of it is Everyone's Addicted.
yeah, everyone is addicted
Okay.
because I said, like you said, the family is also included. There was a time
Yes,
when my daughter's father's mother, which I have a great relationship with, she's my other mother-in-law.
sure.
She's been sober for 30 years. She runs a few programs and stuff like that. So she understands addiction. It's been 8 years. So we decided it's time for us to grieve the loss of somebody who's already alive because that person's never coming back. So we decided to have a little mini funeral, holding each other's hands and saying some prayers and hoping for the best for him, but we're going to say goodbye. We're going to give it to God and release this from our
Yeah.
mental stress because we can't do it anymore, you know what I mean? And that's one big thing that I have talked to people about on the podcast is grieving the loss of somebody who's still alive, because you can't hold on to that forever because they are gone for now, at least. And you
I
have
truly
to
hope
realize
that
that.
I truly hope that person finds the strength. And I know what you're saying, but I truly hope they can find the strength to know that people care about them and love them enough to walk through those coals onto the other side. But I understand completely your healing side of it. So, Jasmine, you and your family and friends are doing something that helps your heart and helps you heal, because I think you have to put on your own oxygen mask, if you will, help yourself and help others. So I do understand that. So wow, that must be very difficult as well.
Well, it's it's watching his mother that's the difficult part, because that's her son, and it worries me because I don't want that to happen to my children. So I try to be as honest as I can be with them. They know that he has, and he has, we call it the disease, right? I don't know how else to put it. My mother has the disease. I've overcome the disease. Their everyday father has overcome the disease. So we try to explain it to them a little bit, because otherwise she sees him and he looks like a walking zombie, but that's not what she remembers him like. Or they go to church and he's falling asleep in church. And so we've had to explain it, or he goes in and out of prison. So we've had to explain these things to her. Even though she's 8, she's had to withstand and understand quite a bit. She just has to, because she loves her dad, that she loves my spouse, thinks that's dad. So I think for her, that's like an uncle almost. You know what I mean? He's never been much of a part of her life where it emotionally affects her that much, as far
As
as I know.
Yeah, I understand that. And as her mother, you're there helping her through some difficult conversations. And it must not be easy. I wanted to ask you, Jasmine, you said you're going to school. What are you taking in class?
Accounting.
Accounting. Okay. And how long do you have to go still?
Depends on how far I want to go with it.
So like a year, 2 years, 4 years?
It could be a year, it could be 4. It
Okay.
depends. I like school. I've been in college for probably almost nonstop for 10 years doing different courses because, like I said, didn't know what my purpose was. So I was taking different courses all the time, trying to figure out my brain, figure out who I am, figure out what I should be doing, where do I fit, all that kind of stuff. So I am a professional learner, a professional student, I guess you could say, but
Yeah, but
with a
you're doing for yourself something that's really important. You're educating yourself so that you have a future in a good field, and you're doing what you have to do for you. Again, putting that oxygen mask on, taking care of you, then you can take care of your family, and you're doing all of that. So well done, Jasmine. Very good.
I appreciate that because, yeah, with me, it's that I just went through some hard times where we could have lost the house. And
Yeah,
I thought to myself, I need to step up and be able to take care of my family on my own.
that's right.
So I don't know how far I'm going to take it, but I want to take it as far as possible so that I can give my kids the life my dad gave me.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Jasmine?
I'm hoping to get my bachelor's, so hopefully graduating with my bachelor's degree in accounting.
Perfect. That's perfect. And your children are going to really respect that, because they're going to watch their mom do the time of work that she has to do to have a better life and to have that career. So well done. I really mean
Thank
that.
you.
That's really good. Now, Jasmine, if anyone wanted to reach out to you today, what's the best place to reach you?
So, best place to reach me would probably be Facebook. I'm old school. I am 37, so I'm not the biggest with the TikTok and the Instagram. So, just my name, Jasmine Bootle. and you can private message me, or I have an email, which is Jasmine Bootle period 23 at gmail.com.
Perfect.
Those are the two ways that are the best to reach me at.
I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing your story. Jasmine, I really mean that. Now, I wonder if down the road you'd like to come back and we can see where you're going and how you're doing. Would that be all right? Do another episode?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate that. So, everyone, this is Jasmine Bootle. She has absolutely shared a tremendous story. I commend you, Jasmine. You're quite a mentor for people. And for everyone else, this is Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. I hope you're all having a great day, and I look forward to talking to you all very soon. Bye bye now.